Welcome to Paris, A State of Mind. Join us as we talk about the good, the bad, the ins, the outs of property rentals and purchases in and around Paris. We'll have topics for renters, owners, and visitors, share questions we are regularly asked, and more. My name is Gail Boisclair of Perfectly Paris, and my co-host is Marie Pistinier of Lokim Paris. Be a part of it. Both of us are proud members of the SPLM, the first representative body of furnished rental professionals. Hey Marie, how are you today?
Hi Gail, I'm very fine, thank you. How are you doing?
Oh, good. You know, as usual, busy. Always running around doing something. But hey, that wouldn't be a typical day for me if I wasn't. What are we going to talk about today? Taxes, we said, didn't we?
Yes, we mentioned that last time.
I thought so. Yeah, it's like about like owners and renters and like primary, secondary residents, all the taxes and stuff. I think that's what we said.
Exactly, because we do love the taxes in France and the paperwork.
And what they do say in English, there is an expression that says the only two things certain in life are death and taxes.
Certainly. So sure. So I would suggest that for today we can. It's really important to talk about the taxes. We know that in France we love the paperwork, and the taxes are going with that usually. I suggest that we can go through the process to see which tax do you pay depending on what you are. If you are an owner, if you are a renters, and so we can go through when you own your apartment from the sale of the apartment and talk about the taxe d'habitation, housing tax, which is usually more the tenant responsibility, but you do pay it also when you own the place, and in particular when you have a secondary home. So what do you think? We can go this way?
I think that's great, and I can't wait. Haha, I love taxes. Not really. So let's just start from the beginning. Once you own a property, what is the very first tax that you're going to have to pay, and when is it due?
So sure, the first tax you have is a taxe foncière, what we call the property tax. This is a typically only owner's tax. It applies to all real estate which are in France, so not only Paris. And the owners pays it once a year. So it's usually, you have the information like around September from what I recall. The property tax is also like the taxe d'habitation, housing tax. It's part of the local taxes which are collected by the local authorities or by the, national authorities, depending the treasury, that was what you call, at the end of the year. Property tax concerns all owners of real estate. It should be housing, business premises, land, and it's established based on the same kind of value, but we'll talk about that as a housing tax. But the property tax is typically its own rules.
So how is it calculated? Is it the same for everyone?
So this is a complicated part because we love when it is. Now it's not the same for everyone because it really depends on the property itself. So depending on the size of the property, it will be really different. So the determination of the amount, it's made by the local councils, local authorities, but the calculation and the collection are usually done by the central government. We could say like the treasuries or tax authorities. In fact, the way they do, they collect some data that are not related at all on you. It's not based on your incomes. It's not based on who you are, from which country you come from, and everything. It's really based on the properties itself. And they carry like several data, and then they can give you the price of the taxe foncière. When you purchase an apartment, usually you ask for the taxe foncière as one of the documents you will ask among other things. Because the taxe foncière will not change from an owner to another one. It's not like if you change the properties, they will have regularly changes, few adjustments and few raised. Usually, it's rarely on the other way. But you can ask, and then you will know if it was 700 euros per year, then it will be around the same the next year.
Okay, so that's interesting to know. So we receive it around the autumn to pay, right?
Yes.
And is that the only tax mentioned on the taxe foncière form?
No, actually, you're right. It's often you do have often. It's like all the time, and especially in Paris, you do have on the second page, on the verso of the page, you do have what they call the household waste collection tax. Taxe sur l'enlèvement des ordures ménagères, which is for to collect the waste. This particular tax, it's really important because most of the owners are forgetting that when you rent the apartment or the property, you can get reimbursed by the tenant once a year because it's part of what we call recoverable charges, the utilities that you can collect actually from the tenant. So it's on. A lot of owners are usually when they do that on their own, they often forget about collecting this tax.
Is it a lot?
It depends. Like in Paris, it's usually around 100 and something. So based on it's once a year. So based on it will also depend on the size of the property.
Sure.
It can be a bit different.
That makes sense. Are there other recoverable charges, charges récupérables?
In fact, there is many of them, and I think that we should definitely do an episode on the charge récupérable because there is so much that you cannot get actually all the utilities from the building utilities you are charged for every trimester. You cannot collect that directly from the tenant. There is only a portion of it that you can. So, but we'll go through another episode about that.
I think you're right. That deserves to be its own episode because already I'm having questions in my mind. So getting back to the taxe foncière, if we sell the property in between the time you're supposed to, I don't know, let's say you get your bill and it's due whenever, but before it's due, you actually sell the property.
So in fact, it's because the taxe foncière is based on who owns the place on January 1st. So if you own it on January 1st, but you sell it on March 12th, then you are still responsible for that. But usually what is done when the purchase is done, that there is a prorated price, and so usually the notary splits the thing depending on the number of months you own the place, and the buyer will pay the balance. In fact, they will reimburse you because you will have to pay because it's
in your name, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Is there a way to avoid this tax, the taxe foncière?
It's rare. Eventually, if the property didn't have any tenant for 3 months at least, and you can prove that you've done everything you could in order to rent it. So, like you have a classical and normal price that you did. Eventually, you pass through an agency and you show that you have the contract with the agency in order to allow the agent to do that. I know that some people during the confinement, and because of the COVID, a lot of people left. So a lot of apartments in Paris were empty around January 1st, in particular this year, not the previous one, of course. And then I know that people could eventually try to show that it was not because of the price, it was not because of what they did, but they really wanted to rent, but it's something that you could do. But you have to go through the Trésor Public, to the systems, and you have to ask for that. So definitely, if you don't speak French, the best is to get some help for that.
Yeah, I think so.
But it's rare.
I speak French, and I don't want to speak with the Trésor Public. Okay, well, what about the taxe d'habitation, like the living tax, housing tax?
So this is also a yearly tax that you have to pay. It's usually, I think you pay it in September. So I'm just wondering because it's automatic for my personal account.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I know that I received the documents and I know that it's paid, but I don't know exactly the thing. But it's we have the information usually in time and now online. So who pays that? It could be the owner, if the apartment is not rented or if it's a secondary home, a tenant, or eventually even someone who occupies the place free of charge. If you have the accommodation on January 1st, you are liable for this housing tax. If it's your primary home, you are supposed since few years. The government said that we were not supposed to, at the end, to pay any taxe d'habitation. So since I think it's the second year that the amount is going lower and lower, and it's supposed to go this way all the way through the next years.
But that's only primary residence,
Yes,
right?
only primary. If it's your secondary home, this is something that you have to consider when you want to purchase a place in, for example, in Paris, because you are, of course, fully responsible for the housing tax. It's the same. The housing tax is based on many different datas, which includes the size of the apartment, the address, and the city itself. If you are not buying in Paris, for example, and the thing is that thanks to the law, unfortunately for owners of secondary home, they can have a surcharge, like an additional charge, an additional fee. It's located on what we call in tight zone, like 10 zone, where there is
Zone tendue.
zone tendue, exactly, which is where you have, we consider that there is a high demand and not enough apartments available. So that means that as of course, the city hall is willing to have more properties for long-term tenants, they force people, owners of secondary home, it's either you pay, or eventually, if you do wish to rent it, then you will not pay this secondary home increase. It will be the tenant who will pay the taxe d'habitation. And yes, it's a case for Paris, and I guess that for many large cities in France.
So the taxe d'habitation, how do you prove if it's your secondary home? How do you prove to the government that you have a renter? You just like give them a copy of the rental contract and
Exactly.
to try to not pay it?
Exactly. We have that when we have, for example, people who live, our tenants are living, and the owner is receiving by default, because it will be the owners who is in the documentation. So it's easy for the government to contact directly the owners. Then you will have to. We usually send, as an agent, we send a copy of the lease with check-in and check-out date. Eventually, even the état des lieux, we talked about it often, but the état des lieux with the date will prove that the person left on March 12th, for example. Mm-hmm. And this will be a way, and eventually, of course, this is something that you have to ask when you do the état des lieux. I forgot to mention that. You have to ask for your tenant address when he leaves.
Oh, yeah. We did forget to mention that.
Exactly. So then when the treasury is asking you for the thing, you give everything plus the email, the phone numbers, and the address, so they can collect it. Even if your tenant is not living in France, you send everything, so then you don't have to pay tax, because by default, they will, of course, try to charge you.
What happens if, kind of like with the ownership, with the taxe foncière, what happens if you have a tenant who leaves on January the 2nd, who then is responsible for the taxe d'habitation?
So it's a tenant. It's a kind of weird things. I think it's not really fair, because if you leave few days after January 1st, you are entitled for the full year, and in fact, you are not going to be there for the full years. So legally, if you have an owner who is not really tolerant, he can just send the contact, and then the treasury will go to the tenant at the January 2nd. Usually when owners or agent, because it can be the same for agents, are pretty flexible, then they eventually will try to do a pro rata temporis or something like that, which is not supposed to be, like, legally it's not like something which is written in the law. We don't say, like, for the taxe foncière, when you purchase it and you split the payment and the reimbursement of part of the taxe foncière by the buyer, it's not the same. It's not like legally where the agent can say, okay, taxe d'habitation is that, divided by 12 months, and this is this amount per month. It's not to be like that. It's more like what you do with your tenant. It's something like a
private.
You deal, yes, it's more like something that you deal privately. Because the base is that the one who is there on January 1st is the one who pays. Also, there is a little portion of the taxe d'habitation who can be, especially when it's your primary home. Right now you do pay lower and lower, but you still pay something. There is a small portion which is based on your incomes, which is not the case for the taxe foncière.
Right, on the taxe d'habitation.
Yes, so it's a little thing. It's not like it will not change the world, but it's a little something. So it's complicated to say to for example, the owner of a secondary home, who have a 60% raise on the taxe d'habitation because it's in Paris and the city hall wants to overcharge this because there is not enough properties available. Then if the owners is charging this secondary home tax to the tenant, it's not fair either, because the taxe d'habitation is way too high because of the fact that it's a secondary home. So this is like an in-between situation. The rules say if you are there by January 1st, then you pay for it. Then after, you can see with the owners if they are a bit if you are an owners, you see with your tenant if they can be a bit flexible in order to have this prorated or something like that.
Yeah, which only seems fair. We'll be right back with Paris, a State of Mind, after a word from our sponsors. And now back to Paris, a State of Mind. With the taxe foncière, there's a second tax that's attached to it, which is related to the waste. Is that the same with the taxe d'habitation, the housing tax? Is there like a secondary tax included in that?
Yes, it's not included in the taxe d'habitation, but it's included in the document. That shows your taxe d'habitation. There is what we call the contribution to the public broadcasting. It's a fixed amount. It's like 139 or 140 euro, something like that. And to be liable for this tax, you have to own the television or a device similar to a television set, and then you pay for that. And this amount is going to go for all the French public broadcasting system to pay for the ongoing business for those companies.
But that's kind of crazy.
But it's like since many years. It's not based on your incomes, which was also in the taxe d'habitation, like on your incomes and everything. When you are taxed, it doesn't depend. It's like the same price for everyone, whether you have a lot of money or you don't. You pay all the thing. But if you do watch TV through a computer or an internet connection, for example, there is no tax to pay. By default, when you are going to declare your incomes, you will have a box to check if you want to check to say that you don't own the TV. You don't own a TV. If you don't, by default, you own one, and then they will charge you for that. It will be on the second page of the taxe d'habitation, and it will be automatically paid if you pay by an automatic payment, monthly payment, something like that.
But I think less and less people actually do have TVs, so why don't they just get rid of the bloody tax?
Because they need to finance this thing. I think openly the public television is an interesting thing, but of course the fact that now you have many different devices where you can watch TV doesn't make fair the tax, which is only if you own the television set. It's like but probably, I'm sure that probably they'll find an in-between things for the people who don't own the TV set.
Yeah, they'll probably say, yes, but you're streaming Netflix or Prime or whatever other video or Canal Plus.
So this was a short one, but we didn't go into too much detail for the taxes. Have you some catch on this episode again?
Yeah, no, it was good, and I think that it's. I think we went into enough detail. I mean, so I get it that there's primarily two taxes. There's the taxe foncière, and with the taxe foncière, there's the waste tax. What was it? Order. What the heck is it called in French again? Order.
La taxe sur l'enlèvement des ordures ménagères. So it's like more the tax on the collection of the ordures ménagères.
Yeah, I knew it was long. It was a mouthful. So that, and it was interesting, like you said, that can be actually recovered from a tenant. So, and then with the taxe d'habitation, the housing tax, well, yeah, I learned that the taxe foncière is pretty well the same for everyone who owns the same property type of thing. So from one owner to another, it's more or less the same, and it's got nothing to do with your income, whereas the taxe d'habitation does have to do with your income.
A little bit.
And also where you live and so on and so forth. And with the taxe d'habitation, you also have that audiovisual tax included in it if you have a television, and everybody automatically has a television unless you tell the government otherwise.
Exactly.
That's it. So I learned, right? Is that good?
Yes. Very good.
Thank you. Well, thanks for explaining that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that will have other questions, but I think it's pretty straightforward. There's basically Taxe Foncière is the owner, and the tax d'habitation is either the owner or the renter. And yeah, we got it. We got it.
Yes.
Yay. Well, of course, we didn't talk about income tax, but that's another thing that
Yes.
exists everywhere.
Yes, and not directly related to real estate. So we'll leave
Exactly. We're not accountants after all,
No,
are we? No,
not at
no.
all. No.
Thank God. 2 + 2 = 5. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
no, 4. Well, thanks very much for explaining all of that to me, Marie.
Thank you, Gail, for all your questions. It was very interesting, and I'm happy to have answers to have answered most of them. Hopefully, I didn't miss one.
I think so. Yes,
Good.
indeed. It was perfect. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much to all.
And have a good day.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Paris, A State of Mind, featuring Gail of Perfectly Paris and Marie of Loquim, both who are founding members of the SPLM. Paris, A State of Mind is produced by Paris Underground Radio. The music, Jazz in Paris, is by Media Right Productions. For more information on this show and others, go to parisundergroundradio.com.